can probably tell, I'm not a narrator. I'm a filmmaker. I've spent my life behind a camera. But until I took this assignment, I'd never seen anything like these cameras. The huge optical telescopes here at Kitt Peak National Observatory near Tucson, Arizona. Another Kitt Peak astronomer thinks about this every time she uses a telescope. Her name is Catherine Pilichowski.
You and I, the trees, the earth itself, are made of many elements that we find in the stars. In fact, these elements are produced in the stars. Tonight, I'm observing stars in globular clusters, some of the oldest stars in the galaxy. By studying these stars and comparing them with younger stars, I can learn about the processes which produce these elements.
But then we filmed at an observatory where they study only the sun. Sacramento Peak, New Mexico. Here, solar astronomers are making fascinating discoveries about the sun and its effect on our planet. For one thing, the sun is the biggest energy source around, and it makes good sense to learn as much about it as we can. Jack Zerker told me another reason why the sun is one of the most valuable. They may not look like telescopes, but that's exactly what they are, radio telescopes, at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. How do they work? I asked astronomer Robert Brown to tell me what they listen for from stars they sometimes can't even see.
This is a photograph made with an optical telescope of a newly formed star and its associated nebulosity called the Rosette Nebula. This is a picture of the same object made with the 140-foot radio telescope here in Green Bank, West Virginia. Using the radio photograph together with the optical photograph, we can determine many interesting things about this object.
We're flying high above the world's biggest ear, this radio telescope at Arecibo, Puerto Rico, the largest single antenna in the world. Bigger than 13 football fields, it's so big that the dish can't be moved to point it. Instead, it uses the Earth's rotation as a tracking mechanism. The surface of the huge antenna is precise to within a 1/16 of an inch, and it can pick up signals from the farthest frontiers of the universe. Hal Kraft told me about it.
With this instrument, we can see objects as small as clouds of electricity.
Some of the journeys radio signals make take billions of years. But here's a trip we can make instantly on film. From Puerto Rico back to New Mexico, where there's a radio telescope so big that its total scale dwarfs even the Arecibo dish. This is the VLA, the Very Large Array, made up of 27 antennas that can be moved along a Y-shaped railroad track. Each arm of the track is more than 10 miles long. John Spargo explains how the dishes work together to produce some remarkable information. 5,000 miles south of New Mexico, Skip Schaller gives us our first view of another observatory.
We're over the Chilean Andes, and that's Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory down there. Well, most astronomers live in the northern hemisphere. Most of the stars are here in the south. The southern hemisphere is the only place from which we can look into the Milky Way, the center of our own galaxy. And if we ever learn what's going on in there, we'll know how stars and galaxies were born throughout the universe.
I'm studying galaxies to try to determine their masses. And with this knowledge, we hope to be able to determine whether the universe will continue expanding or whether one day it will collapse.
Francois and I both fell in love with astronomy when we were children, and years later, we and a lot of astronomers like us have become so involved in the high technology, data reduction, computers, and electronics, we feel removed from that original romantic feeling that we had about astronomy. So sometimes it's good for us to get out among the stars like this so that we don't forget what this science is really all about.